The benefits of being an econ major is that it pays well, if you care about pay. Starting pay typically around $45,000 to $50,000 a year, roughly. And mid-career right now, mid-career bachelor's in economics is paying around $100K a year. But it also is fun, maybe more importantly than the pay here. You get to keep working and thinking about the sort of stuff that we're doing here. You're asked to deal with complex things and try to figure out what's going on. And they're employed by a variety of groups. They're employed by governments, they're employed by businesses, they're employed by nonprofits, they're employed by gaming companies. If you have a video game and say World of Warcraft or Eve, so a multi-online playing experience, and in that game, people are buying, trading, selling things. What do you have in that game?
An economy.
And do you want your economy to crash in that game?
No.
Because what happens? How do all your players do if your economy crashes?
Go play another game.
Yeah, they'll be pissed. Let's be frank about this. They're going to be pissed. And so it's standard practice for these companies to have an economist on staff and sometimes multiple economists on staff to make sure the economy doesn't collapse, just like you don't want the economy to collapse in the real world. Someone who is eventually the financial minister of finance for an entire country, Greece, when he wasn't doing that, he was managing the macroeconomic of video games. It's the same skill set. So there's a lot of places that use economics. And it's weird to say it because some majors, you can very clearly say, if you have this major, this is the exact sort of job you're going to do. I can't do that because so many people value what economists do that you're going to say, well, does this group hire economists? The answer will probably be, yeah, they do. And that's because they really value the way economists think and the skill set they bring, particularly your ability to work with numbers. And when I say numbers, I mean statistics. If you take more econ classes, you're going to take things like research methods. You're going to take things like business cycles and forecasting. And those classes are going to be a big emphasis on your ability to look at data, interpret data, and do what's called econometrics. And that is used in a variety of things, whether you're studying the impact of paid bail on racial impacts. That requires detailed statistical work with people, which is the specialty of economics, to the point where that work is called econometrics. Or, if you're trying to price things like, how much should I charge for this hamburger? Again, it's the same skill set, but applied to a different problem. And there are a large number of jobs in that, and they pay well. Econ makes a great double major. In fact, it's better as a double major because it allows you to specialize in a certain area. Let's say you are really into sports and you're very intrigued by the data application sports. What do we call this data application sports? That's fancy names, a couple fancy names. Any baseball players in the room today?
Yep.
All right, Matthew, tell me about Moneyball. Nick, tell me about Moneyball.
So, a movie based around the A's, the Athletics. And it's about how they built a team with almost half the funding that other teams had. And yeah, they ended up using the statistics of on base percentage to take. I think they had a 21 game win streak or a 22 game win streak or something. And they did it with way less money than any other team had.
Absolutely. They're part of what's called the sabermetrics revolution in sports, or sports analytics. I just wonder, where does that revolution come from? Who does Brad Pitt hire? So Brad Pitt's playing the general manager of the Oakland A's named Billy Beane. And Billy Beane, in real life, hires some people, and like those real people that Jonah Hill's portraying, what is their background? What was Jonah Hill's background in the movie?
Economics.
Yeah. Think about this. So in baseball, there's something called win above replacement. What does win above replacement mean?
Isn't it is that what they're talking about in the game when they talk about Johnny Damon and like how many games he himself will win for the team? It's
So
like how many runs he scores, how many bases he steals, like his worth for the team, like compared to how much money they pay him.
yeah, so what they're doing is they're converting his value into tangible things. So in that example, they weren't necessarily doing the official win above replacement stat, but they were using the same idea, being that if I buy runs, runs buys me wins. So my goal is to buy as many wins as possible by buying runs. And that's all I care about is how much does it cost me to buy wins? And I don't have to do it with just one player. I can do it with a collection of players. Because in there, the emphasis was if I gave up Johnny Damon, I can use the money I save from Johnny Damon to do what?
I mean, it opens the doors for different things.
So even though the individual players by themselves may not be as good as Johnny Damon, as a group, the players I bring in can make the team better overall than when I had Johnny Damon. And I can measure that in terms of wins. Wait a second. Doesn't that sort of sound like an opportunity cost problem and a marginal benefit problem? They couldn't just be applying basic principle of microeconomics to baseball, could they? You already know the answer, right? The answer is yes, they are. And you'll see that more, especially as we're working through the new material that we're working on ever since this last exam. Because we're switching to now what are called firm models. And firm models are very concerned about the benefits and costs of individual changes or changes of going in like one more of this, one more of that. What happens if I replace one thing with another thing? No, or replace one thing with many things. Johnny Damon replaced with many players. And it's not just baseball, it applies to most of professional sports at this point. No, they've all been working to do something similar. Whether we're talking about the plus minus stat in basketball or VORP, value over replacement, or some of the advanced stats you're going to see in starting to be developed for NFL, win share. Which reminds me, who's the most valuable player in football in win share? Which position?
Quarterback.
No.
The kicker?
A particular kicker.
Unitary.
Say again? I'm not looking for a player's name. I'm looking for a particular position.
Oh, the field goal kicker.
No.
A punter.
The punter. So why don't punters get paid a lot of money? If punters are so valuable, why don't punters get paid a lot of money?
Because none of us knew that.
That's one possible explanation, but there's a second one. And it goes back to our whole issue of supply and demand. While a punter as a position may be incredibly valuable, so we could think of that as being high demand, right? All right, so here's our supply and demand curve. So here's our incredibly high demand for a punter. While there may be high demand for a punter, if the supply of punters are pretty large, what does the pay of punters look like? Well, you still could have a pretty low price salary for a punter. Just because you're important for winning doesn't mean you necessarily get paid a lot of money. You have to factor in both supply and demand when thinking about that. So, like if sports analytics interests you, what you're going to discover sports analytics is just applied economics. While there are a few undergraduate programs that call themselves sports analytics, what are you going to discover if you look at their curriculum? Any guesses? Let's see, required courses. Well, principle of micro, okay. Principle of macro, those are pretty standard courses. Intermediate micro, intermediate macro, wait a second. Why did they have me take also the advanced micro and macro? Econometrics, huh? Oh, here's a couple sports analytics classes. Wait. It's an econ major plus 2 classes. And then you take 2 classes like, wait, this is applied economics. A sports analytics undergraduate is just an econ major with a couple applied econ courses on sports, which means if you want to do sports analytics, you could be a math econ major at Bethany and make sure your senior project and your research methods project are all on sports analytics.